Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time. And my name is Gary Fowler. I am the CEO, president, and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in Palo Alto, California. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 17 companies, been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Cliff Software that was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. Love artificial intelligence and quantum computing. I've written 162 articles in the last a little less than 2 years and done around 700 podcasts. So we believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are. And with that, I have the great pleasure of introducing today my guest, Keith Herman. Keith is an entrepreneur, professional with over 25 years worth of experience, developing, building, and exiting more than 50 businesses. He's a founder of IPA Equities, a recognized thought leader for his expertise in business transformation and growth. And he's focused on emerging, disruptive, and transformational technologies that are in growth mode. So with that, I'd like to introduce Keith. Hey, Keith, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Gary. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself. So I got a question for you. You went to University of Texas and got a degree in biochemistry, correct?
I went to University of Texas for a year, and then I transferred to University of Miami and studied biochemistry at both.
What made you decide to transfer from Texas to Miami?
I grew up in the Northeast and spent a lot of time in New York City, where things were really, happening, a lot of stuff going on. And when I moved to Texas, at that time, Austin was a very sleepy town. You had the school and you had the Capitol. And whenever there was a national holiday, it was a ghost town.
Yeah,
so I found myself traveling a lot to Houston and to Dallas, but there wasn't enough going on. And at that age, I had a lot of angst. So I decided to transfer.
Yeah, I remember going down to Austin. It was 6th Street, I believe. There was the street of bars, and it was so much fun. It was like going back in time. There was like country western. There was some cool clubs, but it was just, I know what you mean. A little interesting. And so then you went to Miami. Did you graduate from Miami? Is that where you?
Yeah, I graduated from University of Miami. Yeah.
And how did you go? So you're doing biochemistry. How in the world did you go from doing that to law school?
So when I graduated college, I made the conscious decision to travel and to really get out of the space of being a student and try to really just kind of clear my mind of the 4-year experience of college, and took a trip to Greece and started traveling from Greece into Europe. And during that trip, there were a lot of enlightening moments where I decided, that I wasn't really sure if, in fact, that I wanted to pursue becoming a doctor, which was originally what I had studied to become. And, I had moments of doubt and decided that probably that was not the route that I wanted to go.
Yeah, no, I understand. And so where is Whittier Law School? Is that in the Northeast?
So Whittier Law School now is in Orange County. When I went to school, it was actually in Los Angeles in an area called Hancock Park. And that was originally where their first charter was. And then they eventually relocated to Orange County. I believe it's Costa Mesa.
And so so you did that. What did you do right out of law school? Did you have one day and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? Did you work as a lawyer for a while? What did you do?
Yeah, so a really interesting story. I got hired by a patent and trademark attorney, and Elliot Disner, great guy, hired me, and he said, look, I have a bunch of cases that I have no idea what to do with because they're not in my wheelhouse. So I'm just going to give them to you, and whatever you can do with them. And it turns out they were judgment debtor cases for John DeLorean. It was his bankruptcy. And they needed to clean up all of these debtor cases. And they gave me those cases and figured that they were basically just a waste of time. So give them to the new guy.
Wow, that's amazing. So did you work with John DeLorean himself?
I did not. I worked with the legal team, but I was pretty much on my own, having to deal with debtors, and it was a real learning experience. And long story short, the main attorneys were out of Detroit, and I settled all of the cases and actually brought in quite a bit of money. And the attorneys flew out from Detroit, and they said to me, you should not be a lawyer. You have like amazing business skills. You should really go into business because you'll be a lot more successful, just based upon what we're seeing and what the results you got us. I mean, this is remarkable. So that really was kind of a moment. That was a dinner I'll never forget.
Wow, that's great. That's fantastic. Or maybe they just didn't want the competition.
Could be, but I don't think so.
Wow, that's amazing. So you did that, and then what was it? So I know you did the Property Growth Fund. So what year was that? What are we talking about?
Well,
the late 80s or early 90s? Or
so I got into real estate in the mid 80s. Friends of mine were starting out in real estate, relatively. I'd been in it for a few years. And I saw what they were doing, started working with them. And then we just created a company. At that time, it was before Property Growth Fund. But what happened was I transitioned from buying and selling contracts, purchase and sale contracts, to actually buying property and doing redevelopment. And that was when Property Growth Fund, I had gone through some projects and then eventually created Property Growth Fund in the early 90s, and had a pretty good run with that for quite a few years.
Wow, you're amazing. That's great. And then so Omni Nano, what is that?
So Omni Nano is it's a STEM program for students to educate them on nanotechnology and get them involved. And the founder of that organization is a brilliant scientist in nanotechnology, and a good friend of mine, Marco. And he asked me to get involved and to just try to help them with certain things, and that's how I got involved with them. There's a lot of people over the years that I've worked with or have mentored and helped along, and Marco's one of those. He's just a brilliant scientist, but also a great individual and an amazing cook. He's incredible Italian food.
You're making me hungry just thinking about it. You know what I mean, Keith?
You don't want to miss his dinners.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're making me hungry just thinking about it. I was just thinking about, it was last night, about how much I miss having a nice piece of lasagna. I haven't had a piece since I've been in the Northeast,
Yeah, so while my mouth is half full, he's saying, will you help me? I'm like, absolutely, whatever you want.
And a glass of wine in your hand, yeah.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And so as you're going down through it, as your career, where are you physically today? Are you in Maryland, or are you in California? Where are you today?
In Los Angeles.
I got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Are you in Beverly Hills then, or are you in Los Angeles proper?
Yeah. So we're based out of Beverly Hills, but I myself am only there probably about 20% of the year.
Really? And so do you spend time in the Northeast again, or are you back in Florida, or where do you spend all that?
I travel all over, and I spend, I've been in 6 cities in just the last couple of months.
That's great.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I'm not currently out of the US. I'm not in the US right now. I'm out. But I will be I get back to LA and there's certain things that I do and I'm there for a while. But I mean, I'm looking at projects that are all over and working with people, where they need me there. So they say, you have to come out here, just, come out and we'll sit down and we'll talk. I mean, it's still, a lot of people are still old school, and, Zoom calls are great and you can get so far, but if you're sitting down with somebody in person, you can get a tremendous amount done. And that bonding is really invaluable. So for me, and I enjoy the travel and I mix it with, socializing. So I get out and I get to see things. It's a great way to live.
No, I agree with you. I spent a lot of time myself. I spent 14 years in Russia and in that part of the world. So I would go on the weekends to Turkey or to Greece or to London. It was only a 2.5, 3-hour trip. And it was so much fun. And, just popping on a Russian plane and heading down to Istanbul. It's a lot of fun. Interesting times. Or flying out to Siberia. So now I got you there. Well, that's part of the life. This digital transformation is upon us. And, people are really mobile. You never know where people are. Today, right now, I'm in Palm Beach in Florida. But normally I'm out in California. You never know. And
this is true. And, more and more there's, people, there's the COVID. I mean, obviously we're in technology, right? So in the tech sector, we're accustomed to Zoom calls and doing things remotely and, having teams all over. So it's not really, very new for us, but for a lot of people, it's been a very, dramatic change for them, but I think it's for the better. And I think people are a lot healthier mentally because they have that time to decompress. They don't have the pressure and the angst of traveling, commuting, and they're, slowly but surely adjusting. I think, there's some pluses and minuses, but all in all, it's been a good thing.
I know from my standpoint, I mean, I could spend $100,000 on traveling plus, and, that's kind of nice not having that. Plus you get a better night's sleep. And although you're right, I just actually agreed to speak at a conference in Egypt and Giza in November.
Nice.
And I just hadn't, I was, with COVID and everything, staying around, but I made a decision, I want to start getting out because like you said, it's nice to be able to shake hands and talk to the people that you see online.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're all craving it. It's a shame it's not happening faster, but I mean, it is what it is. But I think people are a lot more appreciative coming out of this, and the relationships, I think, will be a lot stronger as a result.
No, I agree 100%. So tell me a little bit about, you've had over 25 years worth of experience. You're building business and investing. What kind of things are you investing in today? So if somebody calls up and says, Keith, I want to work with you, what do you come in as an advisor, as a, how do you come in as a founder, co-founder? What are you doing with those companies and what kind of companies?
Yeah. So first of all, what I found over the years, having made some really bad investments early on in technology, that if you really want to be successful, you need to work with people and understand how they work, because there's a lot of executional risk. You can have the most incredible idea, but if you can't execute it, it's a big problem. And so there's nothing like working with people and spending time with them. And you need to be able to have some sort of commitment. So I look for situations where there's an opportunity to get involved with a company where they need a strategic advisor, somebody who can come in, who's been there and done that, and who can create some strategy or reevaluate the strategy and help push the company along. And I try to work with companies that I feel that there's potential. They generally offer me, something in the company, whether it's equity or they may just want me as an advisor. It just really depends. And, but I try to choose projects where I feel that there's potential, good core team, people who have their act together. And
we've seen a few of those that don't, huh, Keith? And
yeah,
when you think they do and they don't.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I've been doing this a long time, 25 years, that was very generous, Gary. I've been doing it
Well,
longer, but very generous.
over 25 years.
Yeah, yeah, very, very generous to cut it down for me. But really, you get to a point where you really are looking. It's a lot of this is relationship based, and you want to work with people where you're on the same page, and you want it to be fun and not a drain.
Hey, so I have a question for you. Just exactly that. What happens when you get into a situation? You think it's right. You get into the situation, and I've had this happen a few times, where everything looks right, technology's right, the people seem right. You get into the deal with them, and all of a sudden, it's exactly opposite of what you thought. They're paranoid. The way they do business is different. How do you deal with? What do you do at that point? Do you stay in? Do you get out? I mean, how do you act?
Yeah, so I actually recently had that in a project where, we started off, everything was great. And, there was a lot of transformation right at the beginning, but then you have somebody at the helm who is overtaken by their own personal thoughts and their own desires. And it's about them and it's not about the project. I like to work with people who feel that the project is greater than themselves. When the project becomes only as great as the person who's running it is where there's a problem. And so my preference is to bow out. I would rather move on to something else than to be confined into a project that I really feel is limited.
I agree 100%. I mean, it's bowing out gracefully too. But the other thing is, I don't know about you, but I've actually had situations where I bowed out, and 15 years later, I reconnected with the person, and we ended up doing business together because they were different than they were when I bowed out.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you learn a lot over time, and I think that sometimes you have to let people go on their own path, and you need to let them do what it is that they need to do, and hopefully they come around. A lot of people don't, but a lot of people do. So that's what's great. We live in a dynamic.
You never know. You never know, right?
Yeah,
I remember this. I met this guy, good guy actually. He went to university with me, and he was in my fraternity. And then when they had a lot of fun, I got to tell you, they were really, they were wrestling team, and had a lot of fun. And the last thing I knew, he was a assistant coach of the football team. And so if you're listening, Austin, this is about you. Anyhow, so I get a call from the president of the university. I'm down in Florida. They're coming down to do a retreat, and they asked me if I wanted to come over as an alumni. I said, sure, I'd be interested in coming over. You should hook up. These are the different alumni that are down in Florida. And oh, by the way, one of them was in your fraternity. And here he is. So I called him up. I said, hey, Austin, how you doing? Great. So he said, well, let's get together. I said, sure. And he said, why don't we meet down in Fort Lauderdale near the Marriott Hotel? I'll take you out. Let's go out in my boat. Yeah, I'll go down there. I'll come down. And so I come down to the Marriott Hotel. I'm looking there and I see like a 16-foot boat. And I go over there and I'm standing by the boat. I said, I call him up. I said, Austin. He calls me up. He said, Gary, you coming? I said, I'm right here. I'm standing by the boat. He said, what do you mean you're standing by the boat? I said, I'm right here. He said, which boat? And I said, well, the Sea-Doo. It was a small Sea-Doo. Yeah. He said, I'm not on that one. Look up and to the right. And he's got 100-foot yacht.
Wow.
And so I said, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I could not believe it. So anyhow, you never know what's going to happen. Forrest Gump said, life's like a box of chocolates. I get into this thing. He's got a French chef. We have a nice dinner. We have some wine, talk about the old days. And it was just incredible. But you never know. And that's the other thing, Keith. How important is it to keep those relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question. I've always been on a growth path. And for me, it's what's in front of me and not what's behind me. I have a handful, just a very small group of people that I've known for a very long time. Unfortunately, a very large number of people that I have had relationships with are no longer here. So
You mean physically or you mean mentally?
physically, physically. Yeah, I've lost a lot of dear friends along the way. And so, I've always been an optimist and always looked forward. I have a few people, like I said, that I've kept relationships with. And, they're social. They're not business related at all. But look, some of the greatest relationships that I have came out of left field. And I think that's just how life is. And, that's what's exciting, is you never know who's going to come into your life and how it's going to change and the difference they're going to make. And, I like change. So I don't like to be in a stagnant, redundant situation. But I mean, that's just me. I'm not your person.
And the kind of things that we work on at GSD, I mean, it's all about change, right? Artificial intelligence. I remember back in the 80s, we were doing ops and Lisp, and I mean, it wasn't really AI. And now look at the world in front of us. I mean, our world's fundamentally changing. And, you've been around the block a few times like myself, Keith, and, we have a lot of challenges that we need to face, and we need to come up with technology to be able to face them. We need to figure out how to make more food. By 2050, if we don't double the food supply needs to double in order to be able to feed the people on the planet. So I'm sure that we can do it, but we better look at those technologies now because we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, I saw an article the other day where it was on climate change, and it said something about emissions that, that we have an estimated by 2030, we're supposed to cut emissions by 15%. But by current reports, it shows by 2030, we'll actually have increased them by 40%.
Well, we're going to cut with existing folks, and then we got an increase in population. So, you're going to have 13 billion people going from 8 to 13 billion. You got 1.3 billion in Africa, right? You got 1.3 billion in India. And as these countries develop, that they're going to want to drive, there's a lot of things they're going to want to do.
We live in a society where people like to, people tend to be lazy. Okay. I'm just going to lay it out there. People tend to be lazy and they don't want to do anything until they're forced to do it. I don't know how many more times the subways of New York are going to be flooded before they figure out that sea level has risen and it's just going to continue to get worse as the sea level rises. And there's a real problem there. Global, you want to say it's global warming, something, well, whatever. But the reality is you have a problem there. You have a problem in Miami with Brickell Avenue flooding over.
Oh yeah. I was down in South Florida near Sunny Isles, and had my car near the water. And there was a what is it called, the King Moon or whatever, when the moon's out and it's king tides. Anyhow, I had my little sports car down there. Thank God I pulled it up the street a little bit because the road got flooded. It was unbelievable.
But the point is that, look, we have like amazing technologies. I mean, you and I, we see the most cutting edge technologies that are available, but a lot of people, they don't want to act. Fortunately, some of these projects are getting funded, which is great, but people don't want to act until they have no choice. And then you see the change. It would be great if we had more people on board supporting these really revolutionary projects that would really, affect change in a great way. I mean, we're in this space, but a lot of other people. I have a very good friend who I've known 25 years in Silicon Valley. He's a tech guy. And I was talking to him, he said to me, "You're involved in this blockchain stuff." He goes, "Could you explain it to me?" I said, "You're in technology." He goes, "Yeah, but not that technology." He goes, "I know what I know, and that's it."
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, where you sit, with the startup network and part of it's getting above the noise to be able to figure out how the pieces of the puzzle go together. And I don't know about you, but, one of the reasons that I'm active on these panels, around the world is because you get a lot of knowledge. You figure out how the pieces go together, who's doing what, where these researchers are located, what we could do with that particular company, and how could we partner with another one that's in Argentina or one in the UK. I mean, you get on top of it, and you look at, and again, I don't know if it's you, but I mean, I've come to this realization only recently that it's critically important, because if you're somebody like an Elon Musk who sits at the very top, that's how you can see where the opportunities are going to go, or Jeff Bezos, or Branson.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what's up next? So I know you're doing transactions. What are you working on today that's interesting, and what do you want to do in the future that is in front of you?
I'm looking at projects. As you know, I look at innovative and disruptive projects where there's layered technologies, and the reason why, and for anybody who's listening, what I mean by layered is it's not just one type of technology. So in other words, typically you would say, okay, well, this is a SaaS insurance platform, which is great, and there's a need for all of that. But when you can combine it with another technology, let's say blockchain, where you're adding another layer, let's say blockchain would be a layer below, or let's say artificial intelligence, where you can analyze all the data as you're scaling the project. Now you have an opportunity to create something exponentially greater. And so that's really what I spend my time looking at, those types of projects, because I just feel that it can take us someplace a lot faster. Very often I'm sure like yourself, you're pitched ideas and you say, well, if you would just add this one other element, you would get 1,000-fold, result. And so I feel that that's kind of an obligation that I have, is to try to help companies make those leaps, to help them really affect change on a greater scale. Because a lot of the people in this space are genuinely interested in affecting change. So why not offer the knowledge that's out there to help these folks, get those types of results and really make a difference?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we did GSD Get Shit Done, is because when I was in Russia, there wasn't an ecosystem. We started an accelerator and it took off. And then I started to travel around the region and we started to see the same kind of problems. It's, a lot of it's about the network. And as we said, having the perch, sitting on the perch like you are, to look down and see what's happening, you can figure out how to put those pieces together. And it's hard if you're an entrepreneur, because they're so focused on getting one job done, they're not looking at the whole picture.
Yeah, well, being an entrepreneur is not easy, as you know, and for anybody who's tried it, that it's a challenge, but that's what defines an entrepreneur, right? Is the challenge.
No, I agree 100%. It's a challenge and not giving up. You got to focus and you got to pivot and you got to be okay with it. And you're right. You look about the future and not the past, because I don't know about you, but the people that look back and always focus on the past are the ones that never go ahead.
That is true. I mean, you're wasting time on something that it's water under the bridge.
You're right, 100%.
I mean, hopefully you've learned from it, but if you didn't, that's okay. Move forward, and if you didn't learn the lesson, you'll learn it. You will eventually learn it.
You'll get it again.
Yeah, you'll get it again until you do, but you certainly don't want to waste too much.
You may not like it, but you'll get it again for sure, right?
Exactly.
Listen, Keith, we're coming to the top of the hour. Closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Well, my closing thoughts are that, we're in a great time, I think, right now, in terms of change. This whole situation with COVID and people having the opportunity to kind of re-examine whether it's their work situation or just how they live, a moment to make you just stop and pause and think, I think is monumental. And so there's great opportunities out there. And I think that people are going to have an opportunity here to evaluate opportunities, which they probably normally would not have. And if you haven't, you should, because you may not get this opportunity again. So it's time to take advantage of it and do what you can to really improve your situation.
Yeah, great. And how do people get a hold of you?
They can reach me by email. That's probably the easiest, at kh@ipaequities.com. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, so they can find me there, Keith Herman, or by email.
That's great. Keith, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a guest on my show today. To my audience, thank you for tuning in one more time to GSD Presents, Silicon Valley AI and Tech. I'm your host, Gary Fowler. I'd like to thank my entire team, Zhenya, Derek, Nick, and everybody else that's involved to make this show successful. I appreciate it. And I want to thank all the entrepreneurs out there, all the investors that watch our shows growing. And we believe, as I said before, intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. And with that, let's go out, let's work together, let's make this world a safe, healthy, and happy place to live. And let's make our own dent in the universe. Again, my name's Gary Fowler. Thank you very much.